Welcome to Down to Dunk. I'm your host, Andrew Schleck. We're part of the Athletic Podcast Network. With me, as always, on Mondays is my good friend, Michele Barra. Michele, what's up?
Well, it's all great. I mean, this morning I had goosebumps watching the game, so it was a good one. Like emotions were flowing, so it's nice.
And special guest, Fred Katz from The Athletic. Fred, what's up, man?
I am. Michele got up early and was watching the game, and I am recovering from whatever the hell that crunch time was. Where I've never seen two objectively very good, very well coached, very technically sound teams decide, what if we just continually screw up in perpetuity on both ends?
It was a wild end of the game for sure. Like the very end of the game was very fun. Like the last few minutes of the fourth quarter was just what is happening. And it was, I mean, I'm sure Mark Daigneault loved it because Mark talks about how he wants them to see as many situations as possible. Well, this was a different kind of situation down the stretch of this game.
Yeah, no question. I mean, both sides. How many sloppy passes would you say there were in the last 5 minutes? 8, maybe.
I was going to say,
like there were between 7, 9, something like that. So yeah, 8.
It is. I was going through. I was counting them, and on both sides. I mean, Hart. There was a stretch where Josh Hart, who, God bless his energy. I mean, he's played 40 some odd minutes at this point, and it feels like he's played 40 some odd minutes in 900 consecutive games, and it's certainly not for lack of effort. But there's a stretch where Josh Hart throws an ill-advised pass, then busts his butt back on defense, then chases after a rebound that he shouldn't have, which starts a fast break, then throws another ill-advised pass, all within like a minute, just trying to start a break there. It was, you have Giddey throwing weird passes, picked off. You have a legitimately football-like interception from Deuce McBride.
Yeah.
Where it legitimately looked like a pick six. It was, for two such technically sound teams, it was so wild to watch. And then, of course, you have the Brunson versus Shea face off at the end.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was over after J-Dub misses those 2 free throws. The Knicks go down the other end and get every opportunity in the entire world to make a shot. I mean, the Thunder could not get a rebound. They could not get a stop. And Jalen Brunson delivers there at the end. You thought, okay, it felt like it could have been a game winner. And then you get the slob wizard on the other end. I always say the duo of Mark and Josh Giddey on sideline out of bounds. It's like one of the best in the NBA because they're going to figure out how to get somebody the ball in a good spot. And they got Shea there on the baseline, turnaround jumper, swish. I mean, it was incredible. And then
that was really, to John Hollinger's credit, that was really a blob wizard play.
Yeah, true. Baseline.
That was a blob wizard. Yeah.
Well, no,
it was a blob wizard. So
it was sideline. It was sideline. Yes.
Oh, it was sideline.
I think so.
From the baseline.
Yeah, it was sideline.
You're right. You're right. Yeah. You're right. Slob wizard back.
Yep.
Slob wizard back.
Yeah, and McBride was so surprised because Shea took like an early shot, like no shoulder. He used to do like one shoulder and then turn around. And instead, he decided, okay, I'm raising up right now. And he was like, damn. I mean, when he got the ball there, I said, oh, okay, that's nice. We'll see. I mean, McBride was awesome for the entire night. He really had a game against Shea. Mm-hmm. Shea's clearly not himself right now in terms of like burst, in terms of in general legs. He doesn't have his legs, and for him to say, okay, I'm gonna win this one. I mean, you kind of expect it, but also, I mean, after a night like this, it was nice for Shea to close on this note.
Yeah, it was not a great night for Shea, although he was the only guy on the team that was making his free throws, though.
Yeah.
Which was helpful.
On both sides. We talk about the sloppiness with the passing. It's like Brunson missed 2 free throws down the stretch.
Yep.
DiVincenzo missed 1. Hart missed 1. J-Dub missed 2. It was all
Yeah.
over the place.
Yeah, those two. Giddey missed 2. Dort missed 3. I mean, the Thunder were exactly 50% from the free throw line, 12 of 24. I mean,
That's weird.
Yeah, it was very strange for what is the best free throw shooting team in the NBA. But they were able to pull it together. Shea obviously had like the moment of the game, but then you look back at everything else, and it was Giddey and J-Dub that were dominant in this one. I mean, I was in a group text with some guys, and they're like, I am like forgetting that Chet and Shea are even on the court at times because of how good J-Dub and Giddey were in this one. J-Dub 33, 4 and 8, 2 steals, 2 blocks, 14 of 18 from the field in this one. He was just an absolute killer. And then Giddey, 16, 13, and 12. Third game in the Garden, third triple-double for him. He's the only player who's ever done that. A very unusual record to hold, but we've been talking about this for a little bit, but he's starting to get even better than he was last week. He's really just starting to catch like a legitimate rhythm and playing like the guy that he was last season, which I think a lot of people had thought, okay, that guy maybe is gone. Maybe he can't be this guy with this team. And he's continued to be amazing. Michele, like, what have you seen particularly from Josh recently?
I mean, it's the shot are going in, which sounds like a very, very simple analysis, but the way in which he gets to the basket, I think it's completely different. There was one possession in particular where he was against McBride, I think, and he immediately realized, hey, I'm probably 4 inches taller, and so I can really get downhill and just have a floater on his head. And that recognition right there. I mean, New York was switching, and he had no issues. I'm going downhill, and I'm getting a layup. So I mean, this sort of stuff, it happened like 1 or 2 times in a row where Giddey was so decisive. And of course, when you are going so well at the rim, it's kind of natural to have like the shot being a little bit more decisive. It was no hesitation. Like not many threes. He didn't have to take many, but the ones that were open, he decided to take them immediately, like no hesitation, no double thinking or whatsoever. And on defense, I think that his energy is a little bit more contagious on that end. I mean, he's right there in place. He's not like just standing. He's operating inside the defense. And so, I mean, the decisiveness, I think it's the thing that you can clearly see. There is no deer in the highway kind of thing. It's right there.
Yeah, I've been impressed. Fred, what did you see from Josh last night? I don't know how much you've watched of him lately, but just your overall thoughts on him last night.
Helps a lot when he's hitting 40% of his threes like he has over the last month or whatever it's been.
Yeah.
Things look a lot better. And one of the things that Andrew, did we talk about this? I can't remember if I spoke about this with you or with Royce or with Nick Gallo. I have too many friends who are associated with the Thunder. I spoke about it with someone before the game, and somebody was asking me how I think the Knicks are going to match up and if they're going to put Hartenstein on Giddey.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's no way they're going to put Hartenstein on Giddey. And I get why the question is asked. You see maybe Nurkic on Giddey in a Suns game. You see Valanciunas on Giddey in a Suns game. Hartenstein is unquestionably a better defensive player than both those guys, unquestionably a better rim protector than both those guys, and unquestionably more mobile than both those guys. So maybe you justify it. The Knicks just never cross match. So I was like, there is no way that Hartenstein is going to end up guarding him. He's going to guard Chet, and he's going to have to make decisions on pick and pops. And I thought he did a really good job with it. With him sagging back, and they were conceding the shot. If Chet got hot from 3, they were going to just kind of concede those shots, but he didn't, and the rest of it worked. For Giddey, what was happening is I thought DiVincenzo, they were kind of letting him roam. And one thing that I think Giddey has, which is really good, is he has really good spatial awareness. And that's something they're really going to need in the playoffs, because if he continues to shoot 40% for the rest of the year and he continues to shoot 40% into the playoffs, teams are still going to help off of him. The track
Sure.
record is just not there.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why their lineups get so good when you throw Isaiah Joe in there is because it's just you have the spacing now, you have the shooting, and you can't afford to do that. What Giddey did, I thought he moved really well whenever DiVincenzo was roaming off of him. I thought he was finding space really well off the ball, and I thought he was making the right pass a lot. And it really helps when the ball comes to him and he goes, what was it, 5 for 5 in the fourth quarter from the field? Made 13 of their first 14 shots in the fourth quarter. Like
Thunder made like all of their fourth quarter shots. I think they were 15
Yeah.
or 19 as a team in the fourth.
I also like those bench lineups with J-Dub and Giddey. Like that's a dangerous,
which is a new thing
combination.
to like, by the way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Does Mark Daigneault try new lineups?
Well, what we're saying is,
I think of him as so rigid and unexperimental.
that's a whole nother topic. Is when your coach is rigid, you're mad that they're not creative. When your coach is creative, you're mad that they're not rigid. Like that's just the way that it is.
Yeah.
These lineups with Giddey and Jalen were not working earlier in the season. Like they just flat out weren't working. And Giddey, I give him so much credit. On Friday, he played really well against Phoenix, and we were asking him, and I kept wanting to just kind of push him a little bit because he was he has this kind of like canned answer of when we talk about like his struggles, and he's like, well, I'm a young player, there's ups and downs in my career. We've heard that probably like 5 or 6 times, but he opened up a little bit in that presser and talked about how he used to, that really the big change has come in his mindset. He basically said that he was like had anxiety about being matched up against centers and like what people thought about him and how was he going to attack. He said he would lay in bed at night thinking about it and then would be bad the next day. And I thought it was such an honest answer. Now he's like, I really don't care now. He's like, he actually is trying to make teams flip their coverages as they're doing. And they did that against Phoenix. They started out with Nurkic on him. He played so well that they couldn't defend him with Nurkic anymore. And like you said, like the Knicks weren't going to try it, but you could see whenever like McBride was on him, that's one of the things that Giddey started to do is take advantage of his size, because often he's going to be the bigger guy. And he has been shooting crazy from 3 on above the break threes in the month of March. He was 44%, corner 3, 37%, but it's at the rim. He's 70% at the rim in the month of March, which is very good. He's like in the 50s, I think, on the season. If I look at I'm just going to go check January and see where he was at.
Yeah, January probably starts with 4.
Yeah,
or maybe with like low 50.
He was at 60% in January.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Let me see what he was in February. But to me, it's just the fact that he feels he's around 60% again. But to be up to 70 from 60 the last 2 months, that's a huge difference. And you can see it on the court. Like just the way that he carries himself, just the way that he's dribbling the basketball and passing. You're just like, oh, okay. Like there he is. Like that's the Josh Giddey that we've been missing.
It also, he runs so much better when he's rebounding well.
Yeah.
Because he can grab a defensive rebound and go.
Yep.
And what happens is when they play with that pace, it's funny. I said this to Mark Daigneault last night. The Thunder probably have the most egalitarian screening offense in the history of the NBA.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When you can, and I actually don't mean that as hyperbole. I think they probably do. I don't need to have watched the 1947, Akron Barnstormers in order to know that they did not screen like this, because back then a big would screen for a guard or wing. That would kind of be it. And obviously the sport has evolved to what we call positionless, but I've never seen an offense where they simultaneously care so little about who is setting the screen and also care so much about the screen.
Yeah.
You'll have Casey Wallace just come in and be a tiny little screener on anybody. And the reason I bring that up is because when you have that sort of egalitarian system where everybody screens, everybody cuts, basically anybody can create their own shot, If you can grab a board and go, when you have that offense, part of the reason for their success is basically because they're putting defenders in positions that are uncomfortable for them. You know, whoever's guarding Casey Wallace is not used to guarding the back end of a screen the way that defender is used to guarding the front end of a screen. So it's uncomfortable for that defender. And you're putting that defender in a position to where he has to make a decision that he's not quite used to, or do something fundamentally he's not quite used to. And when you have Giddey grabbing defensive rebounds and rushing the ball up the court, now you're more likely to start off your offense with mismatches, which happened at times last night. And now all of a sudden you're working that off of mismatches. So you're a step beyond Casey Wallace setting screens. And Casey Wallace is out there when that reserve lineup is just killing. And I don't think that's a coincidence. Like, I think their offense flows really, really well when he can grab and go. And it also really helps when can I say something? I understand that Giddey is playing so much better than he was at the beginning of the year. No question. I was 100% certain we were going to lead talking about J-Dub. I was 100%. Like, he's the most underrated player in the NBA.
We do it.
It really helps when Jalen Williams is just like,
he was scorching.
Actually awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like 3-level score, could get his shot whenever he wanted. And
here's the other part of it.
Did he ever hit the rim last night?
Probably not.
Did
and here's
hit the rim.
No.
And here's the other part of it.
On difficult shots. Like, those were not gimmies. Those were like difficult pull up, whatever kind of shots.
And the Thunder started to pay a lot more attention to J-Dub in the start of the fourth quarter when he's with that bench unit, right? The defense starts to pay more attention to him. He gets 5 assists.
Knicks. Yes.
Oh, the Knicks. Yes. The Knicks do.
The Thunder.
I'm sure the Thunder are paying a lot of attention to J-Dub always. Could you imagine if they didn't? Fireable offense.
Wait, who's this guy?
Yeah. Wait,
who's
there
number 8?
There's a second Jalen Williams? What? No.
I mean,
the Knicks
that dunk that he had was so vicious.
Yeah.
Like, wow. I know that you could, like, I mean, I was listening to Mike Breen, and Mike said, oh, well, that's a push off. And Fraser said, yeah, okay. I mean, no. They are so good. They're so, like, the best telecast in the league by far.
When he becomes so difficult to guard and defenses just start locking in on him to that degree, that is what makes things a lot easier for Giddey. Because, like, we talk about Giddey finding open space and cutting. It's a lot easier when you got 5 dudes who are like, what are we supposed to do about this guy who is hitting these contested pull-up mid-range shots? And to me, like, I think J-Dub's the most underrated player in the NBA because people talk about him like he's gonna be really good. You mentioned Jalen Williams to people, and they're like, oh yeah, he's gonna be awesome. No. He's awesome. He is an incredible 3-level scorer right now. He is way better defensively than he was as a rookie. He's a tank. He can shoot off the catch. He can create off the dribble. He's a second-year player who you already cannot speed up. The Knicks could not speed him up last night.
Yeah.
They couldn't. They started sending more attention to him. And what did he do? He just used that to start dishing to other people. Like, you cannot speed him up. And the fact that you can't speed him up and you can't speed Shea up bodes really well for them. I think J-Dub is massively underappreciated. I think he is awesome today, right now, like not going to be awesome. That he is one hell of a player.
Yeah. He has the highest true shooting in the clutch this season of any player that's playing in the NBA today. 81.4% true shooting.
Wow.
Yeah. How many wings in general are better than him at this volume?
What wings would you take over J-Dub today?
No, probably in that there are many. I mean, the league has great wings. My question was more, hey, how many are more efficient than J-Dub today on this volume? I don't know from the top of my head. Probably there are some, but like, he is crazy efficient. I mean, the fact that you can't leave him open from 3. I mean, you just can't. He's too good. I think that he's like above 40% on catch and shoot opportunities. especially what it is like 40% in general. So I guess that he's much better as a catch and shoot shooter. And Fred, you spoke about the defense, and I was chatting with a friend of the pod, James Henderson, and he was saying, yeah, we need more physicality. We need a big, which, it's real. I mean, Hartenstein was crazy good against Chet Holmgren.
Yeah.
But I remember last year, a game against the Clippers, and J-Dub could not stand Kawhi Leonard physically. Right now, it's a different story, and it's just been a year. I mean, he can match up with Karl Anthony Towns, with Giannis, and of course, Giannis is Giannis. He will push you, but it's not the same. He is really strong. He's stronger than last year, and he can really guard right now. I think 1, 2, 4 in a good way. And when you have like this level of a two-way player, I mean, this part is the underappreciated part of J-Dub. I mean, I think that Jalen Brunson had his worst moment last night when he was guarded by J-Dub, not with Dort. So, I mean, I'm not saying this is not like something bad on Lou Dort. Lou was amazing. He had like some cheap foul that I'm sure he will take back. But in general, J-Dub has been in spots as good as Lou Dort. So, I mean, this is the part where you can really project the kind of player that J-Dub could be if he continues on this trajectory.
Can I interrupt with something real quick?
Mm-hmm.
So I just checked this out. Usage rate over 22%, true shooting over 62% this season amongst wings.
Mm-hmm.
And it is shocking how good offense is in the NBA.
Really? Guys.
I mean, tell me how many guys. Should I list them off?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Okay. Do we count Giannis, or is he big?
No, you can count him.
Jimmy Butler, Kevin Durant. I don't know if we count Shea. Probably not. He's a guard.
No.
LeBron, Kawhi Leonard, Markkanen, and that is all.
Yeah, I mean that's still not as big of a list as I thought we were going to be.
Oh, I mean,
going into here.
That's, to be clear, that's amazing company.
Yeah.
Every single one of those players is at worst an all-star.
At worst,
if not
yes.
An MVP.
Yeah.
It holds up the point that, like, he's an all-star good right now. I really think so. He is really, really difficult for someone at his position to hold up that efficiency at that level. You look at even just the mid-range shooting, like that kind of stuff is valuable when they're going to go up against, at some point, a really good defense in the playoffs, and that defense is going to try to take out Shea, and they're going to do whatever they can to take out Shea. And they're going to have more possessions that are going to have to go late into the shot clock, because that's what happens when you have really good defenses who are locked into you, who are scouting you like crazy. And they're going to have to score more late in the shot clock. And all of a sudden, you've got J-Dub who's shooting 49% on mid-range shots this year. And he can just create something.
Yeah.
That is really, really, really valuable, especially if you're going to play lineups with both Dort and Giddey out there, and you need somebody who's able to kind of just rise up in a crowd and shoot it, and that be a good shot anyway. I really think there's a chance for him to do something really, really special if the Thunder make a run. And I think he's awesome right now. I just think he is an awesome player right now.
Well, and he has a ways to go. I mean, this is year 2 for him. I was talking to him about what he's learned about drawing fouls this year. And he said, I don't know. Don't ask me that. He's like, I only get 2 per game. He's like, I don't know how to do it.
That's such a great answer, though. Like, such a realistic, like, he knows. He really is self-aware, which is,
yeah.
I mean, you could have said, yeah, they're not calling.
Yeah, they're not giving me the calls, you know.
Instead, I'm not good at it, which, I mean, it's true that part of the evolution of J-Dub is being able to create more contacts at the rim.
Yeah.
He's powerful. He can really dunk, but I think that he could get to the rim way more than he's doing right now. He settles a little bit, I mean, the fact that he's hitting 49% of his jumpers, it's not something that you want to take away necessarily. But, 49% compared to even like a very bad layup, which is maybe low 50s, that is still a better shot than a contested pull-up. I'm not saying that you should get rid of it, as Fred was saying. I mean, those shots are extremely valuable when you face great defenses that allows you only that. But J-Dub could be so much more in terms of driving and getting more contacts.
Higher foul rate on those layups too. It's not just the percentage.
Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, he has the superstar trajectory. There's like no question about that. He is a good defender. He is a good passer, ball handler. Like he could have his own team, but instead he's on this, like they've already created like some like mini super team in OKC through the draft again. It's crazy. And I mentioned Presti's article that he wrote in the Oklahoman last night on Twitter. And it's like strangely like prophetic. Like it's just strange going back through it because it's really good. I'm gonna pull it up. But Fred, I think maybe you were gonna say something.
Yeah, I was just gonna. I don't mean to. So I covered this team, for a little bit, and I'm familiar with the market and the fan base. I hope Thunder fans are able to appreciate what the hell is going on here, because I do feel like what they are is they are the kid who grew up with their parents making $50 million a year.
Yeah.
And then they got to college and their parents were like, yeah, I'm going to pay for all of your stuff, but like, you're going to have to live in a dorm, not a mansion. And they were like, this is awful. A dorm. Normally, my bedroom is bigger than this entire dorm hall. This whole floor.
You started to go a little Valley Girl there for a second. And I was kind of hoping that you'd lean into that a little bit.
I should have. Yeah, I mean,
somebody.
They're basically Alicia Silverstone in Clueless.
Yeah.
And now at the end, J-Dub is Paul Rudd, I guess. Which by the way, creepiest movie ever. Not just because he's her stepbrother, but also because like he's in college clerking for a law student and she's 16. And we're supposed to be like, yeah, totally cool. Anyway, I just hope now they're out of college and just being supported by their parents. And it's hard to have perspective when that's the way that you were raised.
Mm-hmm.
This is not normal.
No.
This doesn't happen ever.
Yeah.
This has never happened ever. And the fact that the rebuild was so quick to the point that like, not even like, okay, you rebuilt out of it and you got pretty good. Like the fact that it went from, they were accidentally good at the start of it. They're like, oh damn, we just producered ourselves into a really good Chris Paul season.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they really are only really bad for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they have one build-up year where they're the fun upstart team. And now they are the best team in the West with like 8 games to go or whatever. This is not normal.
Mm-hmm.
Like the fact that they have built a super team through the draft twice. It is not normal. I hope that Thunder fans are able to appreciate it as they go through it, because this is not a thing. This is not Oklahoma football where you lose your Heisman quarterback and you bring in Baker Mayfield the next year, like it is. I don't even know if that's what happened, but that's the only Oklahoma. Jason White, he was an Oklahoma quarterback, I think.
Yeah.
But like this doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen. It has happened here where it is crazy to think about what's happened here. I would like for like Thunder fans to like become Charlotte Hornets fans for just like a week and just like know what it's like in the NBA when things aren't just amazing. Because the Thunder went from Kevin Durant, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, and they traded James, and they still had these great teams, and then they lost Kevin, and then for 1 year, and then they get Paul George to basically replace Kevin the next year via trade, and then they get this team. And so I wanted to read a little bit from the Oklahoma article, just because some of it's just kind of crazy. So Sam writes, in order to build and then sustain a truly great basketball team, it requires a method. This method is not guesswork or a convenient message that miscasts others' good fortune as a repeatable skill. That's like the most pressing statement ever. To rebuild true excellence is an industry, and then sustain it requires trading on time and playing the empirical odds. This will require strategic discipline and thoughtful patience. But these are values our organization has always held high. That's how longevity is earned. It is important to remember that. And then he talks about the reposition, replenish, and rebuild thing. And then he goes on to say our ultimate goal is to build a team that will inspire the same kind of joy, success, and togetherness that we have experienced over our first 11 years. This will take time and involve hard choices. There will always be the temptation to take shortcuts. This is a sentence that I think people need to come back to over and over again, especially after listening to a podcast, any national podcast that wants to talk about this Thunder team in the summer, or what they could be, or what they could do, or how they're going to do it, or what they need to do. Just like look back at this sentence. There will always be the temptation to take shortcuts, to look for quick fixes, and then reach out for instant gratification. There's no doubt there will be criticisms, much of which we can all recite in advance right now. It is the job of the organization to resist those shortcuts, accept that criticism, and keep us deeply committed. Like those statements, this has all happened. They have got this team that inspires the same kind of joy and success and togetherness. Like they've done that,
Yeah.
And it's just kind of crazy that you say these things, you write these things, you put it out there, and in almost no time, they were able to create that. And some of it is that this organization has now the foundation to build something where they didn't really have that in the beginning. Presti was very young taking over this team when he was in Seattle, and then didn't have this culture developed yet. It took him a decade to develop this kind of culture. And now that he has it, he's catching the same lightning in a bottle with regards to talent. But the thing that's different than the first time around is that he has this culture that has been developed. And Fred, there are so many people that exist from that era that are still with the organization today that understand it and are fully back this. You talk to anybody that works for this organization, they will do one, you ask any of these people, they'll do anything for Clay Bennett. Everybody loves Clay and how he's kind of handled this organization. And then people feel the same about Sam. And what the kind of culture that he has created there is, it's astounding. It's hard, and it's been good even for somebody like me to be around, because they are. I mean, this isn't only the principles and stuff that they live by aren't just applicable to basketball. They're applicable to every part of life. And so I don't know. Maybe I'm gushing too much, but I don't know if you've kind of seen the same thing, Fred.
Yeah, the only disagreement I'd say is you say they do anything for Clay Bennett, and I don't think Royce Young would eat chicken fingers without ketchup.
Well,
that's a very good point.
That's the line.
Yeah, that's.
I think Royce would be like, you know what? I'm out of here.
Or
I'll sign any NDA you want. I'm out of here. I'm eating my chicken fingers with ketchup.
Mexican barf. He's definitely just spreading some ketchup on top of that.
And the nice thing is that right now it could be. There could be excitement, organizational excitement, and there is barely none. I mean, you can clearly see that they are. I mean, satisfied is the wrong word. They know that they are on the right trajectory. They know they are on the right path, but they do know that they have accomplished nothing. And I think that to be true to those words, I mean, to the fact that we have to climb the mountain. We really have to do that. Until you do it, you didn't do it. So, I mean, it's not just saying those stuff. It's constantly, day by day, living by those principles, by those paradigms. So take the trade deadline. They could have done anything. I mean, they could have brought in a big. They could have probably traded for a very nice four-man. They could have probably gotten a guy like Jeremy Grant if they wanted. So that was a shortcut. I mean, Jeremy Grant, even if it's not the ideal player because it's not a rebounder, to have him in the starting unit, I think that unit would have been so much better this year. And it's also like I was saying before about the big man. It's also clear that if you have someone that is not Biombo, but maybe someone like Artenstein, which I really like, by the way, he would be a perfect backup big for a guy like Holmgren. But if you have him today, and as soon as you see Chet having a rough night like this one, well, I can plug in Hartenstein. Then where is the development of a guy like Holmgren who needs to be beat down by these guys over and over to understand how to deal with that in the future? Because yes, Hartenstein probably would make the Thunder so much better today, because when you face Jokic, when you face Embiid, when you face name another big, it's Brook Lopez, for example, you will be better, so much better. But then I don't think the Chet will be as good next year, or have even if it's not better next year, he has the opportunity today to learn that and to see if this is conducive to him being better. So I really think that this is, I mean, you could even say, and I would not question that a great big man is what separate the Thunder for a legit shot to the finals this year. And the Thunder are not willing to sacrifice the development over that. That is astonishing. I mean, because you can say, hey, it's right there. I mean, if you have someone who can beat down Jokic for a series, you may have a crack of it. Yeah. No, we really want to do it our way.
I think with Presti, it's very in character for a Sam Presti team, because I think one trait that Presti has had, at least in the entire time that since I've been covering the league, is that his number one philosophy on team building is he wants as many bites at the apple as he can possibly get. He is about keeping that window open for as long as possible. And if opening it a little bit more in the short term means the room's going to get too cold and you're going to have to close it in 5 minutes, he's going to lean away from that move. And there have been times where he's been like, screw it, we're opening this thing up. The Paul George trade, that was a risk. I think he also thought of that as I think that the organization felt like they had to make that move in order to keep Russ too. That was you need somebody else to give Russ a reason to stay. You need to be competitive to give Russ a reason to stay sort of move. So I think even in a move like that, which can be looked at as, okay, you're giving up 2 young players, you're bringing in Paul George, he's an expiring free agent. Nobody at the time thought that there was a chance they could convince him to re-sign. Like that move is looked at as, okay, you're rolling the dice. That's a short-term move. But in their eyes, that's getting us to keep Russ. And then we have the opportunity, and then we can restart after that. And they didn't give up any draft picks and that sort of trade. So I think the philosophy has always been keep the window open for as long as you possibly can. And when you consider that, all these other ways they're trying to operate make the most sense. Having Chet be as good of a player as he can possibly be when he's under contract for, 3 more years, and then he's restricted, and then you're going to keep him, and then he's under contract for 4 or 5 more years after that. Having Chet become as good as he can be is going to keep the window open, and maybe even more open for a longer period of time than bringing in a backup big who can help you, and who's probably still going to get pulverized by Nikola Jokic anyway, because he's Nikola Jokic, So I think they have that is the overriding philosophy over all of their moves and their non-moves. And I think it will continue to be that way, because that's just who they are.
Mm-hmm. Also, the Bismack Biyombo, disrespect here is just outrageous. Just outrageous.
Or Mike Muscala, for what it's worth. Guys, how do you feel about the foul that Dort made on Brunson on the 3-point shot? I'm so torn on call like this one. It's not because of Lou Dort, Like, what can you do? He barely moved towards him. Barely. He's just like close, and Brunson takes like a very good jumper and clearly jumps forward. I know I don't want to sound like a homer, especially a homer of Dort, which I'm not, as Andrew can testify. But I kind of wonder. I mean, where's the limit? Because really, Dort tries to stay away as much as possible.
Yeah.
In that moment. It's a weird suck off, but I just have this in my head since this morning, and I want to talk it out.
Brunson's tricky. He's just tricky. He's a tricky player to guard, and he makes players make those kinds of decisions all the time in a lot of different ways. It's not just the 3-point shot. It's in a lot of ways that he, like the stop and start, it's stuff in the lane. He's gotten less free throws than he did before the NBA decided to change everything. But he's just a tricky player in general. And I think with players like that, I think that's more of an unusual thing, I think, for Dort. I think mostly, I don't know. I mean, Fred, you're more of the expert on Brunson.
Brunson's kind of like Shea in that there's just nobody in the league who plays at the pace that he plays at. And there's nobody in the league who plays with the mannerisms he plays with. And it makes him really, really difficult to prepare for. Really, really difficult, and really difficult to close out on. He's got impeccable footwork and impeccable hand-eye coordination and impeccable body control. Like, Michele, I don't know the answer to your question, but I think the reason that none of us know the answer to your question is because there kind of isn't an answer to your question. And that's why Jalen Brunson's awesome. Like, it's just, he has these herky-jerky, weird quirks about his game that he jumps forward on his jumper. I mean, I remember I covered Garrison Matthews, who is not the level of player of anyone we're talking about right now. But I covered Garrison Matthews in Washington, and he became obsessed with getting fouled on 3-point shots. And the reason he was fouled on 3-point shots is he's a very good shooter. If you watch his shooting, he like long jumps forward, and nobody knows how to close out on him. And if you can train yourself to shoot that way, and you can train yourself to have that sort of body control, it's just tough. I also think that last night's game in particular was refereed very inconsistently. It was super physical for the beginning, and then kind of became touchy. And then there were certain random touch fouls in there. And then you saw, like, Brunson got hit on the go-ahead shot with 4 seconds left, and nothing is called there. When that to me was like, Dort clearly clipped him. I also think in particular with the 3-point play, or the foul on the 3 that you're referencing, where they said Dort was in Brunson's landing area, like 1 or 2 plays earlier, Brunson had fallen down and hurt his leg in some capacity. And then Brunson goes down, lands in the landing area, and then he's really limping because he hurts that again. And I do think officials are just more like, that is fresh on their mind. Like, they're watching him limp around. He just got hurt the previous play, and now someone went into his landing area. I do think officials are more likely to be like, in a scenario like that, to be like, you know what, let's call that the flagrant, so we don't set a precedent where someone can get hurt, or honestly, where Tom Thibodeau doesn't just like put a hit out on me.
Yeah. I want to go to a couple super chats from El Sombra Regio 7. He says, shout out to Gordon and Kaysen, whose buckets will get overlooked, but came at times when it looked like the Knicks could run away with it. Yeah, there were a couple. Gordon had like 5 points, like a quick 5 points.
He dunked the basketball once.
The basketball. Yep, he did once. And then Kaysen Wallace. Kaysen hit that 3, like early shot clock 3 in
I love that.
beginning of the 4th. That's kind of his specialty, and specifically in that spot, you can kind of feel it. Like, okay, Kaysen's open. If he's open in that spot, he's going to
take it.
And he's been good. Really, the whole bench was good. And his other comment is, it's ever so important when your 7th through 9th guys can get you hard buckets in critical times in the game. Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you're gonna be really good and you're gonna win 55 to 58 games, which the Thunder are going to. Like you have to have nights where your bench is supporting that.
Yeah.
And last night it wasn't just like one guy. And that's the thing with the Thunder is like they don't have a sixth man. They have just lots of guys that come off the bench that can shoot it and kind of plug into more of their system. So yeah, both those guys played okay. And I don't know how much Gordon's going to play in the playoffs, but they're going to use
like this. And you have guys like Wiggs, like Kenny. I mean, we were discussing in the beginning the screen stuff, the way in which Wiggins play, it fits that to a T. I mean, the plus minus is not great for him. It's not a shiny toy. I mean, he doesn't have like splashy plays, but he's so consistent in doing very good things on both ends. He's not the best stopper in the team, but you can rely on him, especially against certain matchups. And offensively, I mean, last night he didn't hit a three, but he played perfectly offensively. I mean, he makes very, very often, I mean, I would say almost all the time, the right decision. And when you have guys like that, where you don't have to worry about them being in the right spot, doing the right thing when they have to make a decision, it's such a luxury. I mean, and in the past, we had players where you see them making a decision. Well, like, what is your thought process? Like, why are you doing this? With Wiggs, is never the case. I mean, yes, he can have turnovers because this is a basketball game, but he's so sound. And again, last night, I think he was crucial in the fourth quarter. And in general, for the entire game, he was one of the bright spots off the bench.
Yeah, without a doubt. The Thunder are first in the Western Conference currently, sitting at 52-22. They
That's
are
insane.
half game above the Nuggets and then a full game above the Timberwolves currently, who lost to the Billy Donovan-led Bulls, who are the strangest team in basketball. Like, I don't have any clue what to think about that team.
They were the strangest team in basketball last year, too. The most inexplicable top 5 defensive team in NBA history.
Yeah, it was very strange. It was very strange. I actually was going to point out earlier, Fred, you had a little Billy Donovan-ism. You called Casey Wallace little tiny. So
little, very, very, very. He's very, very little tiny. He'll screen and he'll pick, and he'll roll and he'll dive.
That's so good.
I had to watch the stats. I mean, how in the world they are beating the T-Wolves? And then I say, okay, when you shoot like 58% from three, that can happen.
That helps. That helps. Yeah. So the Thunder, they have the Sixers Tuesday night, which Embiid is currently listed as out, and everyone is talking about how he's probably going to play in that game. So I think that's still TBD. Maxi's questionable in that game. So that could be an amazing TNT game. It's the early game on TNT in Philly. So that will be interesting. And then they have Wednesday night. I hate that it's the second night of a back-to-back because like the whole NBA world is going to be watching, and it's the second night of a back-to-back on the road for the Thunder. So it's just kind of, you wish that you could flip-flop these. Because whether the Thunder, whatever happens, I think what's going to happen in Philly might just be weird anyways, depending on what's going on. So I wish that this was like fully rested Celtics, fully rested Thunder. What do you got? But won't have that. And then Pacers Hornets ends this road trip. So long East Coast road trip for the Thunder. Hey, we got Royce Young on the radio broadcast if you're interested in that kind of thing.
And Nick Gallo.
Yeah, Nick Gallo had a nice call there at the end. So if you want, you can listen to those guys on the road all week. Okay. Anything else that you guys want to discuss before we go?
I want to discuss that I love Isaiah Joe.
Yeah.
Do you know that I exclusively refer to Isaiah Joe as 6th Man of the Year favorite Isaiah Joe?
No.
There's somebody who I talked to with the Thunder, and I will only refer to him as 6th Man of the Year favorite Isaiah Joe. Just shout out to Isaiah Joe. Having speaking of inexplicable Bulls defenses, having inexplicable dunks
Oh my gosh,
against the Rockets.
dude, that dunk, I still don't understand it. I mean, he said that was his best dunk of his life, which you believe after seeing it. But
Yeah,
it was a great dunk.
Yeah,
it was great. It was great. Look, guys know the best dunks of their lives. I remember Alex Abrinas dunked on somebody when I was covering the Thunder. I can't remember the dunk, but it was a good dunk. He dunked on someone.
Did he say I'm about to
And-
dunk?
Possibly. I'm sure that the next podcast we said that.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I
And
weirdly remember being against the Clippers. Could that be?
I honestly don't remember. What I do
vaguely
remember is
remember
walking into the locker room, asking him if that was his best dunk ever. And he said, no, my best dunk ever was a dunk I had in Spain. And he just turns over his phone and it's just called up on his browser. Like he just turns it over. He doesn't have to Google anything. It's just right there on the browser and shows it to me. And I'm like, damn, this dude's just got this on his Safari right there. Like everybody knows their best dunk. So if Isaiah Joe says that's his best dunk, then it really must be. But he's such a game changer for them. I feel like there's going to be an Isaiah Joe playoff game. I feel like there's going to be some Isaiah Joe playoff game where he comes in and he hits 4 threes in the second half and they just roll with him to close the game. And everybody freaks out. Who's this Isaiah Joe guy? He is such a game changer for them. They are a different team when he's on the floor with the way that he shoots and he can do some stuff off the dribble. He's not just a shooter. He plays with great energy. Love Isaiah Joe. Shout out Isaiah Joe. Also for Thunder fans, I may or may not have a Lou Dort story in the burner.
Dort,
that'll be in the Athletic.
You want to give us a little teaser? Any little teasers that you have?
Sure. I sat down with Lou before the game yesterday, and he was nice enough to give me a lot of time, and we had a really great conversation about what it takes to kind of become a top of the line premier defender in the NBA. And he was really interesting and introspective, and we got really into the nitty gritty about he's got these weird quirks defensively that very few other guys do. He closes out weird. He does weird stuff with his hands. Like he doesn't always close out with his hand up. Sometimes he'll claw at it like he's like a T-Rex or something. And he'll like just try to disrupt guys. And we had this really interesting conversation about these little quirks to his defense that kind of separate him and will confuse offenses. He's not just this tank and this try hard defender. He really tries to get people to, I should say, put offensive players in a position to where they're like, I've never had a guy do this to me before.
Yeah.
So we had a really great conversation, and I'll have a story out on that. I can't tell you the exact date, but I'll have a story out on that at some point in the not too distant future. And if you're a Thunder fan, I think you'll enjoy what he had to say, and what Mark Daigneault had to say, what Shea had to say. I think they were all, they were all very praiseworthy of Lou Dort. You'll be shocked.
That's great. You should go to theathletic.com/down-to-dunk and get The Athletic for a discounted rate. And you can read that story whenever Fred posts it. Also, good job saying Mark's last name correctly, because some people just don't know how to, including the Thunder's own broadcast, which
Mark Diagonal.
Mark Daigneault. It's just like,
look, in his defense, or in everyone else's defense, I should say, like he could have just been named Smith,
yeah, could have been.
Could have been.
I mean,
It was not against the Clippers. It was against Tristan Thompson, I think, on the
Tristan
Cavs.
Thompson. I think it was against Tristan Thompson.
There's two YouTube dunks for
We're searching for those.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, me too.
I think it was against
That's the first thing that I do when I see a big dunk from somebody that I don't. It's like, does this guy do this? And I go look, and then Isaiah Joe had 2 YouTube dunks.
Speaking of Mark Daigneault, he's the favorite for Coach of the Year, right?
Yeah, I think he actually is the betting favorite. Yes,
right. So at the very least, there are going to be a lot of There are 100 voters.
Yeah.
There are going to be a lot of voters who vote for him.
Mm-hmm.
What percentage of voters who vote for him for Coach of the Year do you think would both recognize him on the street and pronounce his name correctly?
Recognize him 60%, pronounce his name right 15%.
Come on, voters. I mean, maybe a little bit more than 60%.
Do you think those are both the lowest percentages for amongst voters of any award?
For sure. Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
like no one's putting Jokic for MVP and being like, although actually there are probably some Jokic voters who don't know how to pronounce Jokic. And they just say Joker all the time.
Yeah.
Anyone who exclusively says Joker, I'm like, you've immediately lost your credibility because I know you don't know how to pronounce Jokic, which is not difficult to pronounce.
It's not difficult. Like, these things are not difficult at all. Yeah, Mark is minus 300 on BetMGM right now. Chris Finch is plus 400. So he is a pretty heavy favorite there. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely true. Maybe Kobe White. Do you think everybody would recognize Kobe White? I mean, they should.
Yeah. I think Kobe, I think any good player is going to be more recognizable than any coach.
Yeah, the thing is, like, if you put Mark, you could do like a Where's Waldo thing with Mark. Just like sit him in the Thunder crowd in one section and say, find the coach. You have 35 seconds to find the coach. I bet you it would be like 50% of voters could find him.
That's true.
Because he's just such a regular looking guy, you know.
How do you think how do you think the organization feels about that? I feel like the Thunder love that.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like it's so within their personalities.
Yeah.
And I feel like they love that.
Oh, yeah. They absolutely love it. You know, I didn't get feedback whenever I did the Who Is This thing at Summer League, you know, from the Thunder. But I would say that they probably love that nobody knows it, who knows who this guy is, and that he's just like this genius, like working behind the scenes, you know.
Totally. They would love to live in obscurity.
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. If they could just win the title and nobody know it, awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. No parade. What's going to happen is everyone's going to Republic after.
Yeah.
Presti is playing a Tribe Called Quest playlist.
He breaks out the drum set. He's in a Tribe Called Quest cover band. Only 100 people are allowed in.
No, they're inviting 3 local schools. They're turning it into a charity event, actually.
I actually think that it's very wrong. I mean, I think that for that, they would actually celebrate.
Oh, they will.
I'm just joking. Just joking.
But like in an expected way. I mean, I'm not saying that Presti will just like using his drum on the podium. I mean, nothing too crazy, but
yeah.
I mean, I would bet they would be at that moment.
A drum kit, that'd be amazing.
I would say that they, more than most cities, feel a responsibility, feel beholden to, or more than most organizations. I feel like they feel beholden to the city and the fan base much more than your average organization. You know, I've covered the Wizards. Ted Leonsis just basically if Ted Leonsis walked out onto the court at halftime and just individually flipped off all 17 people who were at the Wizards game, then it would have been less insulting to Wizards fans than him announcing that he's moving the team to Virginia.
It's insane.
And then Virginia being like, absolutely no way. And him having to crawl back to DC. And it's like, it would have been he would have been more well-liked if he just flipped them off constantly.
Yeah.
The Knicks operate a lot more like a corporation than your average NBA team. It's not, I mean, the city of New York gets behind the Knicks because New York is New York and the Knicks fan base is the Knicks fan base. But organizationally, they want to win, but they want to win as much for themselves. And I do feel like the Thunder are very aware of how much of a part of the fabric of Oklahoma City they are. and I think they feel some sort of social responsibility there. I can picture it now. If they win a title, I can just picture Sam Presti talking about how this is for the city.
Yeah.
How Oklahoma City has been through this and been through that.
Yeah.
And the people here are so blue collar and
Mm-hmm.
so try hard, and this team reflects that. I could see the whole speech right now.
Yeah. This championship was woven into the fabric of the city before it was even won or something.
Okay. We are not entitled to say anything else.
There it is.
And I will say this about Mark, like going back to like him not being recognizable. I think that he also wants it that way. Like Mark does not want to be, when we talk to him about his success, he will point to the players immediately. Like he doesn't want to talk about his journey, even though it's an amazing journey that would be great on this particular podcast. He doesn't want to talk about it. He wants it to be about the players and about the organization and about everything else. And that's just kind of how like he lives his life. And if you ever have a chance to talk to him ever, like you just see him out in public, he's a very humble guy. He's very, very smart, but just like very humble and like really fits into the Thunder so well. And it like fits into like what, Presti would want in a coach, it fits in very well with that too. So, I give him a lot of credit. And when I think he's going to win, I think he's going to win Coach of the Year this year, and very much deserves it. Not only because the team has won, but just because of the process with which they play. And you talked about it with the screening and stuff like that. I mean, he just has a lot of buy-in from top to bottom with this squad. So, all right. Thanks so much for listening to our show. Hope you guys are doing great. Appreciate everybody in the chat today. For everybody listening, if you will just do one thing for me, just like this video right now, if you're in the chat, that would be very much appreciated. Hope you guys have an awesome rest of your Monday. We'll talk to you guys again on Wednesday.